Moments ago, the man behind Trussonomics, Patrick Minford, defended the Prime Minister's new economic policies exclusively on the show, and he explained the subsequent meltdown over a crisis he argues is made up. And despite the hysteria, both Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng have rightfully held their ground in their push to save Britain from the disastrous policies of lockdown that have helped land us in this mess. Tonight, Liz Truss tweeted, "We must put this country on a trajectory for long-term growth whilst maintaining fiscal discipline. Cutting taxes will boost investment, create jobs and opportunities for all." Meanwhile, here's what our brand new Chancellor had to say.
Do you have a message for the markets, Mr. Kwarteng?
Absolutely. We're sticking to the growth plan and we're going to help people with energy bills. That's my two top priorities.
It is better when he talks. I don't think it works when he does the silent treatment. However, with the attacks on the PM on the rise, rumours of discontent in the Tory party and Labour's lead rising to an imposing 33 points, according to new polling by YouGov and The Times, can Liz Truss ride out the economic and political storm? Let me know your thoughts, Dan at gbnews.uk or via Twitter, and please vote in the poll online. But to help you make your mind up, I'm joined by criminal barrister, former Conservative MP, and showbiz legend, Jerry Hayes. Associate editor for the Daily Mirror. Oh, God, don't say the Mail, whatever you do, Kevin McGuire. And the brilliant journalist and broadcaster, Angela Epstein. Let me start with you, Kevin McGuire. Great to have you on the show. Is Liz Truss toast?
You know, I used to think she'd be out of her depth in a puddle. Now I realise it's a damp pavement. She's in absolutely serious political trouble. Labour would prefer her to carry on. She's exceeded their expectations. She's worse than they thought. With Kwasi Kwarteng, they're like the Laurel and Hardy without the laughs. I was with a group of right-wingers in the Conservative Party tonight, and they are openly speculating that she could be dumped and replaced by Rishi Sunak. I'm not saying that will happen, but I think she's ruined now. That's it. She's typecast. You've mentioned that 33% poll lead. She's going to have a record. You're not going to reverse that. I think the mood is changed. It's got the feel about it in politics of 1992 and Black Wednesday, where the public mood shifts. Keir Starmer is being reassuring, not particularly radical, but he's trying to say to people, look, I'll be a safe bet, while she has gone off in a wild economic direction, whereby you increase spending, you increase borrowing, and then you cut taxes at the same time. It wasn't just a magic money tree she was shaking, she thought it was a magic money tree forest. And she's paying the price for it.
Kevin McGuire, she has got 2 years, though, hasn't she? And an effective working majority of 71. What happens if the markets settle and the policies work?
Yeah, you'd hope the markets would settle. How do you define the policies working? Because she said she's not expecting growth overnight. There's very little evidence that cutting taxes in this way will produce growth. In November, they're going to have to produce the data from the Office of Budget Responsibility. They haven't yet produced. And I think you were quite right at the beginning when you said the presentation was poor. The presentation was poor, but I think the fundamentals were also absolutely wrong. And they're worried about those figures because they're going to show borrowing soaring through the roof, those big tax cuts, which people think are monstrously unfair. It's not just the top rate of tax being cut. It's not just the banker's bonus going, although I could find no banker in Britain who thought that bonus cap needed to go. They've all got round it. You can treble your money quite easily. It's also the fact that the corporation tax cut will, as Rishi Sunak said, or the rise that won't happen, he called it a big bung to the wealthy and the large corporation. It's unfair. That's what people are kicking back against. They feel it is unfair. And once you have that mood, you cannot shift it.
Angela Epstein, can Liz Truss ride out the political and economic storm?
Unequivocally, absolutely unequivocally. I think what we've heard, and sort of with respectfully that Kevin has just dished up in a snapshot, is hysteria, a lot of noise, a lot of catastrophising and a lot of panic. We have the highest tax burden since the 1940s. You've heard far greater minds than mine, far greater economic minds who've talked about the relationship between incentivising the economy, stimulating growth, and the benefits long term that happens. I mean, the cut in the reversal of the national insurance and also the cut in corporation tax. These are things that were cancelled. These are already costed, so we knew about that. The cutting of the top rate and the base rate of income tax, not due to take effect until April anyway. I think we need a steadying hand. I mean, whenever I think of Keir Starmer, I think of somebody who was happy to campaign for Jeremy Corbyn. So whatever you say about being a man of vision and about a man of judgment, that sort of stymies that one for me. He may have had a reasonably good conference, but I still don't see him as a man of vision. And if Labour are doing well in the polls, I think it's very much a kind of knee-jerk reaction, and we know history has shown us that what people do mid-term is quite different from what they do in the ballot box, in the privacy of the ballot box. And at the moment, Labour are doing well because there's panic about the Conservatives, not because Labour are a better option. I think Liz Truss will be, as I said, a steadying hand. She's resolute. I don't think she'll do a U-turn. I think Kwasi Kwarteng certainly won't. And that together they will persist with this vision that they have for stimulating the economy and ultimately benefiting everybody. All they have to do is eradicate the noise, the kind of myths that the Tories only care about people who've got lots of money. Where does all the tax receipts come from? They come from the top 1% who earn lots of money, and we need more people earning money and establishing businesses to help the rest of us.
Jerry Hayes, it's premature for Liz Truss to order a removals van.
Well, of course. The real person in difficulty is Kwasi Kwarteng. And even Gerard Lyons, who is the architect of this particular policy, has said he made an error of judgment. For a party who actually is the party of the free market, why don't they understand the free market? If there's any interference on your television screens, it's because it's Margaret Thatcher, who I worked for and I used to advise in 1975, as did Patrick Minford, and mercifully she ignored both of us. What is happening is she'd be spinning in her grave because she believed in sound money. Now, Angela was talking about the hysteria. The hysteria is not coming from the press. The hysteria is coming from the markets, because the one thing that Liz Truss and the Chancellor haven't shown us is how is this money going to be paid for? Why was there no Office of Budget Responsibility analysis? And this is the difficulty. She's got to hold her nerve for the time being. It may be, at the end of the day, she is going to be in difficulty, but Kwasi first. But she's got to reassure the nation. She's got to get on the TV, not the regional shows, and just say, look, we have a policy which is good for this country. Whether it is or not, I haven't got a clue. But she's got to reassure people. But she has no personality. She is the person who makes, what's his name? Starmer.
That's not a good sign.
Charismatic.
Well, of course, you were a Tory MP. If you were a Tory MP now, what would your emotions be, Jerry?
My emotions would be, what are my constituents saying to me? My constituents would be saying to me, how am I going to pay for my mortgage? My constituents are going to say to me, how? My wife and I have been Tories all our lives. We've got 5 jobs between us. How are we going to put food on the table? Because what is happening with this uncosted, this sort of thing you expect Labour to do, uncosted borrowing, and it's going to lead to inflation. And that is not good news for anybody.
Jerry, clock's against us. What do you think about the next election? Is there any hope for Liz Truss, or is it Keir Starmer's now to lose?
Look, there's always hope. The fact of the matter is, who knows what happens? What did Macmillan say? Events, dear boy. You never know what is going to happen. But it's, for the first time, Keir Starmer looks electable. And when Labour look electable and they're no longer a threat, and the threat is perceived to be the government, rightly or wrongly, they're in trouble.
Kevin McGuire, what does Keir Starmer need to do for the next 2 years to build on this boost in the polls?
Yeah, T&Cs apply, but I think, Mark, it is his to lose now. I think there's been a change in British politics. He's got to continue reassuring, and then he's got to show how he will improve people's lives to try and clinch a deal. Because the government, Liz Truss, Kwasi Kwarteng, worship the markets. I've always, from the left, been critical of the power and responsibility of markets, but they worship those markets, and their markets have marked their homework and given them a big, big fill. Now, Angela, I remember when a few months ago she was defending Boris Johnson exactly the same way she's defending Liz Truss. So she's quite right to criticise and ask questions about Keir Starmer supporting Jeremy Corbyn, but she's very guilty of that herself. If they don't put up benefits in universal credit, matching inflation, when they're giving these big tax bungs to the rich, they'll get a further kickback. This is going to go on and on and on now. They've dug themselves into a hole, and it's very, very hard to see how they can get out.
Although, Kevin, to be fair, I'm sure that a big spending Labour government might spook the markets as well. Of course, we might have to wait 2 years to see whether that happens. Angela Epstein, last word goes to you.
Well, I think there's a bit of a kind of contradiction in terms going on here, because on the one hand, we're being told that Liz Truss is wooden and that she's colourless and she's not present, she's not in the room, she's not in the moment. But on the other hand, we were told repeatedly, and hands up, Kevin's absolutely right on this small point, that Boris was somebody, Kevin, you've got to be right about something, love, is that I was a big fan of Boris, but Boris was routinely criticised as being the end of peer show, the vaudeville act, the boosterism without any substance. What do you want? Either you want somebody who's all singing and all dancing and the electorate like to have selfies with them, or you have somebody who says, I'm going to be a constant force now, I'm going to keep things steady, I'm going to be laser focused, and I'm going to lead us through this. It's all about bunging the rich. Extra tax benefits. It's about making sure people don't flee the country, keep their wealth here, and help all of us in the process.
We need competence. That's what we want. Competence. Yeah. Nothing more.
Well, it's all about opinions. There you go. Look, an ex-Tory agrees with the Daily Mirror's associate editor. 3 of my favourite commentators all on one show. What a thrill to have enjoyed the opinions of Tory MP Jerry Hayes, associate editor of the Daily Mirror, Kevin McGuire, and the brilliant journalist and broadcaster Angela Epstein. So who do you agree with? Can Liz Truss ride out the economic and political storm? Eldel says on Twitter, for the sake of a viable Britain, she must ride out the storm, despite the lefty mainstream media, woke commentators and opportunistic short sellers. Eric says on email, she must prevail. The mainstream media and the arrogant left have managed to unseat one elected PM. They must not be allowed to do it again or to bring down a government. And your verdict is in. Can Liz Truss ride out the storm? 66% say she can, 34% say she cannot. In that 44% is Jerry Hayes, who's cackling like a wild witch over on the sofa there.